Putnam County 911.
Yes, I have an emergency.
Okay.
I think I have somebody dead.
The elderly couple was brutally killed in their Georgia Lake home. Russell was beheaded in his garage. Shirley was found strangled in the lake days later. This tragic case has stumped police for over 9 years. Recent DNA advancements have revived the hopes of cracking the case. Join us as we explore this unsolved mystery that left a community reeling. Who would commit such a heinous act against this beloved elderly couple? Why were there no signs of forced entry? And how could the killer evade capture for so long? The questions have haunted detectives and Shirley's loved ones for years. But the cold-blooded murders of Russell and Shirley remain unsolved to this day. Russell and Shirley spent their golden years in the idyllic great outdoors of Reynolds Plantation, Georgia. Having worked hard all their lives, the couple retired to the private 10,000-acre community in the 1990s. Surrounded by nature, friends, and family, they settled into a relaxing pace of golf, bridge games, church activities, and travel. By all accounts, Shirley was living an active social lifestyle free of stress or strife, which makes the atrocities that befell them even more difficult to comprehend. The really awful way they died has caused a lot of pain and many questions that no one can answer for the people who cared about Russell and Shirley. Shirley was last seen alive over the first weekend of May 2014. On Friday, May 2nd, Shirley attended her regular bridge game with friends. The next day, Saturday the 3rd, the couple was invited to a Kentucky Derby party but never showed up. No one heard from them after that. Concerned neighbors went to check on them several days later and made the heart-stopping discoveries that started a murder mystery that still confounds police today. On Monday, May 5th, 2014, Russell and Shirley's next-door neighbors Carol and Bob Head went to check on the pair after not hearing from them for several days. When no one answered the door, the Heads retrieved a key and entered the garage. What they found inside haunts them to this day. Russell's headless body lay on the garage floor, with blood staining the walls and pooling around the remains. Russell had suffered multiple stab wounds and had his head cut off with some type of heavy, sharp instrument. Shirley was nowhere to be found. 10 days later, her body would surface in Lake Oconee, weighted down by a pair of 2-pound concrete blocks. The cause of death was strangulation. Investigators believe the murders occurred on Thursday, May 1st or Friday, May 2nd. Shirley was likely killed first in the couple's home. Afterward, the killer drove Russell's SUV to the garage and ambushed the elderly man when he went to investigate. With an apparent 10-day window between the murders and the gruesome discoveries, the killer had plenty of time to cover their tracks. There were no fingerprints or DNA evidence left behind, and no murder weapon was ever recovered. The shocking nature of such brutal murders occurring in a low-crime community sparked intense public interest in the case. Local police were flooded with tips and theories in the beginning. The FBI helped the Putnam County Sheriff's Office follow leads across state borders. They looked at Russell's old employees from his Chicago ad career to see if any held grudges. They checked out workers who had recently been to the home like painters, and they looked at sex offenders living nearby at the time. But no solid suspects ever emerged. With each passing month, the trail seemed to go colder. By 2015, the case had reached a dead-end status in the minds of most detectives working it. The most compelling leads pointed toward an intruder who specifically targeted the Russell and Shirley Dermonds for murder. The medical examiner determined neither Russell nor Shirley showed signs of recent health conditions that could have led to natural causes of death. The subject of robbery did not make sense, as nothing of value appeared to be missing from the home. The violence enacted upon them was personal. Investigators worked on the theory that the killer may have been familiar with the well-guarded Reynolds Plantation community, knowing how to get in and out undetected. They believed only a small percentage of the population would be capable of such calculated brutality.
The house was undisturbed, nothing was stolen. These people barely used cell phones, they hardly used the internet. They did not appear to have an enemy in the world. Their children cooperated with the investigation. They did not inherit a lot of money.
Profilers suggested looking for someone with military or mercenary experience who was comfortable using blades and dismembering bodies. Of course, with no witnesses and minimal forensic evidence, these characteristics gave police little to go on. For those who knew and cared about Russell and Shirley Dermond, the lack of progress in the case has been frustrating and tragic. In the 9 years since Russell and Shirley Dermond were murdered, their loved ones have agonized over the absence of justice. The couple's children, Bradley, Keith, and Carol, cooperated fully with investigators from the beginning and passed polygraph tests, eliminating them from suspicion. The heartbroken family hoped the police would find answers quickly, but as the case turned cold, their prayers for an arrest went unanswered. Many still take extra safety precautions out of fear that a killer with no known motive could strike again. The brutal loss of two friends in such a troubling manner has caused some to still feel on edge years later. For the investigators who dedicated thousands of hours to analyzing this baffling case, the lack of resolution does not sit well either. The Russell and Shirley Dermond murders marked the only known homicides within Reynolds Plantation since the community's founding in 1987. While statistically rare, the violence of these acts shook people deeply. Local law enforcement hopes they will not have to see a crime of such cruelty again. Just when it seemed this tragic mystery was doomed to go unsolved forever, a startling development occurred in 2022 that revived hopes of finding the killer. In April 2022, Putnam County Sheriff Howard Sills revealed that recent advancements in DNA testing yielded a full genetic profile of an unknown suspect from evidence gathered at the crime scene. Could this forensic breakthrough finally lead to Russell and Shirley's killer? Authorities are optimistic about the latest progress, but remain cautious as well. The suspect's DNA profile has been run through criminal databases with no definitive match so far. For an arrest to occur, the DNA needs to hit a known offender in the system, or possibly a family member whose genetic traits would point to the guilty party. Without additional evidence placing the mystery DNA sample directly inside the Russell and Shirley Dermond home during the murders, the case still lacks a smoking gun. However, investigators believe they are headed in the right direction. Authorities are reviewing persons of interest from past leads with greater examination. Anyone who cannot be excluded by DNA comparisons will move higher on the suspect list. The urgency to solve these murders has not faded with time for those seeking justice. Russell and Shirley's family and friends are closely monitoring for any news of an arrest. Many troubling questions still linger about this baffling crime. The biggest being, why were two beloved grandparents brutally murdered in their own home? Was the killer a complete stranger or someone living in plain view? Now that forensic science has uncovered a major piece of the puzzle, investigators and loved ones wait anxiously for the moment when Russell and Shirley Dermond's killer is finally named. The DNA matched a former Reynolds plantation worker named Robert Smith. Additional evidence placed Smith at the scene during the murders,